What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, we got breaking news today that completely changed our entire plans for today on what videos we were going to make, but it's a good one. And I think it's one that fans are definitely going to be enjoying, and definitely one that a lot of people have been asking about. And we finally got the answer. Jared Goff gets his big contract extension from the Detroit Lions. It's a 4-year extension with what it sounds like a 5th-year option possibly attached to it. $212 million total with $170 million guaranteed. This is a big contract that, again, regardless of the numbers, which we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this video, at the end of the day, Morgan, Jared Goff earned this contract. There's no other way around it other than to say that he 100% earned it from the way that he's played and what he's helped this team accomplish since he's gotten here.
Yeah, man, and and I'm sure people watching this video are gonna some of you will be aware that early on in Goff's tenure, man, I really did I saw I hate to say it this way because it's brutal, but like a broken player.
Yeah.
There was like what you see just like watching the games, and then when you watch the tape, I think a couple. I need to delete it, to be honest with you. Or maybe I did already, but I made this whole it was like a minute cut up of like some bad sacks Goff was taking. I want to say it was late 2021, and it was brutal, man. He was drifting in the pocket, like he was getting sacked, and you'd see offensive linemen like throwing their hands up in the air. And I say all this to like give the man the most, like some of the biggest respect I've ever given an athlete, right? Because so many people wrote him off. And I'm just super, super impressed that he basically was able to pull himself up off the mat. And yeah, he's in a good situation. You have Dan Campbell here. You have Brad Holmes here. You have a damn good team here, right? But yeah, man, it's really, really impressive. And he definitely earned it, Meko. I like that you said that because we knew it was coming in all likelihood. And we'll get into the numbers in a minute. But yeah, I wanted to say all that because I really do. I want to give Goff his flowers. He stepped up in the playoffs, man. Those 2 games were huge. It was the most fun I've ever had being a sports fan. Shocker, I know. But yeah, what else do you think about it?
No, man, I want to agree. Like, right, I'm right there with you. Like that first year of Jared Goff in Detroit was not a fun one for me, and I had a lot of honest opinions at that time. Don't really regret any of them because those opinions were from a snap point in time, and like you said, it didn't look good, right? Regardless of the circumstances, it didn't look good. And so like I'm willing to own it, but then I'm also willing to say like that's legitimately how I felt based off of his performance at that time. As his performance has gotten better, my opinion of him has gotten better, and to the point where now, yes, him getting this contract extension once they won the division, Morgan, it was like, okay, yeah, he's getting a contract extension. Once he won 2 playoff games, he was in the territory of like you can kind of ask for whatever you want, right? Like short of him getting the Lions to the Super Bowl and winning it, winning 2 playoff games for this team, for this city, guaranteed you the ability to go in there, put your nuts on the table, and be like, this is what I want. And listen, there was there were some negotiations back and forth. And I don't think it was necessarily about what Jared Goff wanted, but the fact that, listen, Brad Holmes is a really smart guy, and he's been working to get Amon Ra taken care of. He's been working to get Penei Sewell taken care of. There are a lot of other young players on this team, and we're going to talk about this as well later in the video, that they also have to consider. So it took time, Morgan, I think, because they have to consider everything. It wasn't as simple as, yes, you deserve this money. Here's a blank check, and let's write whatever number you want on it. But it was writing a number on there that was going to allow the team to still be flexible and at the same time give them that ability to, like Brad Holmes has been saying since day one, to keep that window of contention open. So with that said, once the news broke, which it kind of, I mean, I guess news in the NFL breaks at random times all the time, but what was your first reaction when you got the alert on your phone that, breaking news, Jared Goff is gotten this extension, and you saw the numbers and everything with it?
Okay, I was like, okay, I'm happy. I was happy it was done. Like we've talked about it. We figured in all likelihood this is going to get done. I know I just said that, but I do. I think I was like, okay, here we go. There's going to be some people that are really excited. There's going to be some people that are not so excited. So, but at the end of the day, like you said, Meko, he earned this. I think it needed to get done. You set a precedent, right? Like if you do things the right way and you perform, the Lions are going to take care of you. And he's done that. Like, yes, he's not, he's not elite, if you want to throw that word around. He's not going to be in that category of Mahomes and Josh Allen and these guys who can do freaky things with their bodies and all this stuff. But he's a darn good professional quarterback. He understands him and Ben Johnson have to be super in sync by now, which is exciting. And he's got a great system around him. And when he's on time and everything's in rhythm and they're clicking, he's a maestro out there. So I give him his credit. And at the end of the day, guys, this is just par for the course. It's NFL quarterback money. The number is just going to keep going up as the cap goes up. So yes, 50-ish million a year sounds crazy, but that's a going rate, man. Daniel Jones got 43, Meko?
43, 45, I think it was.
43, 45 a couple years ago. So if you get Jared Goff $5 million more than Daniel Jones, I mean, call that okay. I'm going to say okay.
Well, and that's where I want to kind of jump in, right? Because when the news broke, I immediately became a mathematician in my head because I was just like, wait a minute, 212. Like, okay, how much is that average per year? 170. Okay, how much is that technically per year? Because again, like we know with NFL contracts, you rarely see that first number that's thrown. It's all about the guaranteed money. So you really just need to kind of focus on that number. And like you said, it comes out roughly to 53 million a year. Obviously, again, the way NFL contracts can be constructed, the way that you can kind of you can give players a ton of guaranteed money without necessarily crippling your cap for that year is something that the Lions can absolutely do. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that because, like you said, Morgan, this is a little bit different money, right? This isn't while Panay and Amon-Ra got really big contracts. I think it was a little bit easier to give them their guaranteed money, which you and I just took a look at before we did this video. Like a lot of their guaranteed money is coming to them next year. And it's pretty easy to do that. This is a lot of money to give Jared Goff at one point in time. So it's going to be interesting once over the cap kind of gets updated to kind of see how this money is broken down and how it's being allocated to him. But I want to sit here and absolutely back everything you just said. When quarterbacks like Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray and other quarterbacks are out here getting $40 to $45 million and haven't quite yet accomplished, we said the same thing about Panay. When it comes down to some of these tackles and same thing with Amon-Ra with some of these receivers, when you haven't accomplished what another player has accomplished, they get to go to the table and say, look at my resume. Right? It's not just about, again, what tier you're in. GMs don't care about tiers. No one's going to sit there and look at Jared Goff like, you're not in Patrick Mahomes' tier. You're not in Josh Allen's tier. That's stuff that fans do. And rightfully, like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? But that's what we do. We absolutely look at players in the concept of tiers. But at the end of the day, Jared Goff has accomplished what great quarterbacks do. He's gotten his team to winning records. He's gotten them to win the division. He's gotten them to win playoff games. That gets you paid. And so, yes, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that the Lions are going to have to allocate, but there's no other GM that I would trust to do this well than Brad Holmes at this point.
100%, Meko. And a couple things here. So per Tom Pelissero, the extension is a 3-year deal with the 4th year being 2028 as an option. So we know that detail out. And then, as you said, once the details come out, we'll know more. Guys, I can almost guarantee you that this is going to be a backloaded deal. And what I mean by a backloaded deal is, if you're not familiar what we mean, it's when a contract like Goff's cap hit might only be 15 or 20 million in 2024. And then it might be, 30, 35 in 2025. And then it might skyrocket in 2026 and 2027. Right. So it might go way up. But the way that you can negotiate that, the cap's going to go up. That's almost like you're just kicking the can. Teams do that all the time. So that's probably the way it's going to be structured. It's not going to impact, keeping your core guys. We'll talk about some other guys in a little bit later that, there might be some discussions about, but yeah. And I like to think of it this way. So he's still behind in terms of guarantees. I think our own Jeremy Reisman, the boss, the producer at Pride of Detroit, put this out. So he's behind Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts in guaranteed money. All right. So very soon, he will also be behind Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had to have been thrilled to see this deal. And to be honest with you right now, man, I'm not sure who I'd rather have, Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff, because Trevor Lawrence has looked kind of shaky. I don't, it's been
Yeah.
weird. He has all the tools. I'm not obviously from a raw standpoint, you'd rather have Trevor Lawrence, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence's agent. To your point, Miko, it's the tiers thing doesn't happen among agents and teams. It's purely a fan thing. The agents are like, hey, here's the resume, here's the market value, here's what we need. It's very matter of fact, right? It's very business like. So yeah, the cap hit in 2024. Also wanted to throw this out, was already $32 million. So I bet you his cap number for 2024 might go down. We'll see. That'll be interesting because if it's below 32, right, the Lions are going to gain cap room in the immediate from a just simple standpoint. But if the number is say 50 million by 2026, this is just a little idea I had on the way that came into my head when I was driving home. That jump isn't nearly as much, right? From 32 to 50, that's a jump of 18 million. That's not nearly as much when you consider by 2026, the cap will probably have gone up another 30 to $40 million conservatively. Okay. And you just look at it that way. And then that's how you want to start looking at a player's cap number as a percentage of the overall salary cap. And that's a good way. Try to get away from looking at the raw numbers because a lot of the times they're very misleading. Use overthecap.com. Great resource. That's the best one. And over Spot Track. But yeah, those are just some context. We're trying to give context here to the overall discussion that we know is going to take place around this, right, Miko?
Yeah, 100%. And you kind of already started leading into my next question, which is really like, how should fans look at this? And I think what you were kind of saying there breaks it down perfectly. I know, again, it's big numbers. It's 50 million a year. And when you started talking, or at least again, when fans were talking about what Jared Goff could potentially get before this deal was official, there were people that were closer to the 45 side of things, and there were some people that were okay with him getting 50. Well, now we know it's actually a little north of 50. How should fans kind of feel about this now that we know what it is exactly going to be?
Yeah. Okay. So let it simmer a bit, and I've only gotten to be this way because we're old. Okay.
Yeah.
Back in 23-year-old Morgan would have had some really loud opinions about this. All right. And they might not have been the most educated or thought out, but you get to be a little older and you get around smart people like we get to be around all the time. And yeah, you just think about it, right? Like, let's see what Trevor Lawrence gets, right? And who's the other quarterback?
Tua.
Thank you. Let's see.
Tua
see. I tell you what,
if Tua gets near this, I mean, I guess, yeah, if Tua gets near this, then but again, it speaks to what you were saying before. This is the cost of doing business. It's not about, you wanting to say like, oh, well, this quarterback is better. It's the simple fact that agents are going to go to GMs and say, hey, my player's younger, right? Like Jared Goff is 29. Trevor Lawrence and Tua's agents are going to be able to go to their respective teams and say like, hey, we know that's what Jared Goff, and yes, he's accomplished that, but it took him until he was 29. Trevor Lawrence still has 4 or 5 years, right?
Yep.
So like those numbers might be higher. Miami better not. Like
they're gonna.
I know, but like Tua's one more concussion away from being up out of here. All right, let's. I don't mean to say that disrespectfully, but like that's the truth of the matter. When you have to spend an off season learning how to fall, that's not a safe investment, Morgan. It's not a safe investment.
And I feel bad because I like Tua as a kid, but yeah, I mean that's the way that this is how it works, guys. So like today, I'm sure this is just us being silly a little bit now, but also maybe serious. Like Tua and Trevor Lawrence both probably texted their agent like some money emojis, like a couple money bags, Brinks truck,
for sure.
Because the conversation is going to start at like they're going to walk in there and they'll be like the number starts around 57, 58, and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
million a year. That's just because it's just boop. Remember the Stafford deal? Everyone made a big deal because Stafford was the highest paid quarterback, and then very shortly thereafter he wasn't. I think Matt Ryan got paid, and it just keeps on stacking, and it's good for the players, right? Because they get paid more. So yeah, don't overreact on it. Don't listen to that godforsaken radio, all right? On
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about. Number 97.1. Don't listen to it. Tell your dad, tell your uncle not to listen to it. Tell them to listen to a podcast. Right now, Detroit Lions Breakdown podcast is an excellent one.
Very good one.
But yeah, don't just yeah. Think about it. See what happens here in the next couple weeks, and then I'm sure we'll do another video, and then we'll look at this in even more context, right, Meko?
Yeah, but I like what you're saying. Ultimately, like, this is not, as much as we want to look at this in the context of, is this a good contract or a bad contract? Like, we just can't, right? And it's very
Right.
similar to what we said about Panay's contract. It's very similar to what we said about Amon-Ra's contract. These numbers are going to get eclipsed in a matter of months, and it's going to make this contract look like a bargain deal. But the other thing that can help that with that, Morgan, is how Jared Goff continues to play on the field. And so, with that in mind, does this contract raise any expectations for you when it comes to what Jared Goff has to do on the field? Do you now look at him in a different light than you maybe did before he got this payday?
Yes, for sure. And to your point right before that, Panay's cap number, Sewell's is $8 million in 2024, and St. Brown's is $4 million in 2024. So that's what we're talking about with backloaded contracts. But yes, to your point, I do think the bar has to go up, man, because now it's not like, oh, you're doing great, and you were supposed to be this throwaway from Los Angeles, but oh, you're doing pretty good, and like he was still getting paid at like a professional quarterback, but now it's probably, to us, to fans, it's going to change a lot, right? Especially the ones that maybe are still not in Goff's camp, which I understand, it's up to you fan how you want to fan, as long as you're not being toxic and nasty. But yeah, I think it's, what about you? I think it does.
No, it has to, right? Because we can't continue to just be like, oh, it's okay that, that he's not the guy or whatever. Like, clearly fans feel like he is the guy. But now,
Mhm.
like, you have to be the guy every single Sunday, right? Like,
Yeah.
when it comes down to whether this team is successful, quarterbacks already get looked at, but you're going to get looked at now that you're getting paid in the same range, like you mentioned, right? A Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert. Those guys are quarterbacks that, not just their individual fan bases, but the NFL as a collective, look at those guys and be like, oh yeah, that is a guy that can lead almost any team to success, given the right circumstances. Jared Goff is now going to have to continue to do what he just did in 2023, which was a great year, right? Second in total yards. He was fourth in touchdowns. He's been able to keep the interceptions relatively respectable, right? Only had 12 last year. The year before that had 7. So I think as he continues to play that way, then again, what he's paid will not bother people. No one's going to sit here and critique if he's getting paid $50 million, if he's going out putting out similar numbers. Now, if there's a dip of any kind, yeah, people are going to get the pitchforks out. And I mean, it's going to be hard to call them off when, listen, you now have a price tag, like I just mentioned, that puts you among the elite. And so now your performance has to match that.
Yeah, and I love the point that you made there. Really, like, if Goff does what he did in 2023, that's $50 million quarterback play, because you're playing late into January, right?
Yep.
Like, that's if Jared Goff plays like he did in 2023, and even if he can clean up like a few of the turd performances where it just feels like he didn't, you know what I mean? Like, he woke up, didn't have his Wheaties. I don't know what it was, but yeah, like I think you clean that. The Lions are going to be playing final 8 minimum again. Like, that's just, they're that good.
Yeah.
And he's part of the, like, that's the thing too. And I think he realizes this. He probably could have, in reality, guys, he probably could have asked for a little bit more money. But I think Goff's a smart guy, and I'm sure he's like, all pro, future all pro. Like, you know what I mean?
Pro
Like,
Bowler, right? Like, yeah, you start like naming these things off, and it's like, okay, like, I get to
life is good.
Yeah, I get to be the captain of this ship, right? Because again, he's the quarterback, and everyone is always going to look to him to lead. And if he continues to play the way he has, then he will continue to lead well. I don't foresee Jared Goff taking a step back, and I definitely don't foresee him taking a step back just because he got paid, right? Because I think he's all, like, to your point, he's a smart guy. He's cognizant enough to know, I now got a bag. Spotlight just got brighter.
Yeah.
And so there's not going to be, and I'm not saying that it won't, not saying it's not fair, but yeah, you're probably going to hear less people complain about the defense because they're going to be like, well, you have a $50 million quarterback. Your $50 million quarterback is going to have to overshadow any type of deficiency that's anywhere else in your team. And whether that's fair or not, only time will tell.
And it's on Goff's shoulders too, but really it's on the offense, man. Like expectations have risen for the defense too. Don't get me wrong. Like they've loaded up for a reason and they're going to be expected to be better, but the expectation for this offense is top 5 in football minimum. Like,
yeah.
That's just where we're at. Like if they're 8 or 9, I'm like, well, a little bit of a dip there in efficiency because it's a doomsday machine, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Goff is at the center of it. Like he's a maestro, getting this symphony of football doom rolling in one direction. And we've seen what it looks like. They can't be stopped when they're like, they had the Niners bloodied and on the mat, man. Like if it weren't just for a complete meltdown for like,
I was gonna say meltdown from the defense
minutes.
though, right? For the defense, like kind of collapsing, and then the offense not really being able to hold serve. Yeah, that game probably ends differently. But like you said, they've re-upped on the defensive side. They've kept their cornerstone players and their wide receiver, their left tackle, and now their quarterback. Everything is in place for them to reclaim what they just had in 2023. But going forward, beyond 2024, things are going to start getting a little more interesting, Morgan. And with a contract like this, listen, it's said all the time, right? The minute you pay a quarterback big money, there's this thought that your window starts to shrink. And I don't necessarily believe that's true because I think there are enough teams in the league that have paid their quarterbacks. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at the Baltimore Ravens, you look at the Cincinnati Bengals. There are some teams in here that have been able to pay their quarterbacks and stay in contention. But those rosters do start to look differently. How do you see this kind of shaking out for the Lions now that they've paid Jared Goff?
Okay, so I want to address a couple things because, like, before the Lions, first of all, I want to say I love that order of Brad Holmes that he did this in with Panay, Saint, and then Goff. Like, cornerstones first. We're gonna get you, Jared, but hold on now. We got to get
these young cornerstones.
All pros.
Yeah.
We got to get the all pros taken care of. So I love the order of that. And it's going to affect things, maybe not in like even the first 2 years, right? Because we've already talked about Panay's cap hit is low, Saints is low. They don't really like start getting up higher until 2026, 2027. And we already talked about the salary cap will have increased a good chunk by then, like conservatively, like I said, $30-40 million. But at the same time, this is where Brad Holmes is going to flex his muscles, right? Because it's easier for the Lions to be really good right now. They have a lot of awesome talent on cost-controlled contracts. Some rookie deals is what we mean by that. It's a young, talented team. However, like as these guys, like, down the road, you start looking at paying Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to get maybe not like elite Myles Garrett money, but he's going to get broken off. He's going to get a good payday. You look at Sam Laporta down the road. Shoot, if JMO goes crazy, you're going to have to start. So you're going to have these high paid guys that you've retained because you've drafted and developed them well. Bravo. But the way the Ravens stay the Ravens and the way these other, like a few other franchises really, I know everyone says that the Ravens are the one to look at. They're always good. Is Ozzie Newsome, best GM of all time, right? I would love if Brad Holmes was second Ozzie Newsome. That'd be great for us for the next 20 years. But yeah, Brad Holmes is going to have to continue to hit like at a high rate from like these on the draft. Second, third, fourth, fifth round picks. You're going to have to hit. Maybe not always. You're not drafting Pro Bowlers in the fifth round, but functional players, right? Your Malcolm Rodriguez's, players like that. Like you're going to need to hit those because for every guy that you have up on a chunky deal on a second contract, you're going to need some guys that are on some cost controlled contracts too, right, Meko?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing that fans are going to have to get accustomed to is that this is what it looks like to be a winning organization, right? The Lions have had 2 good years back to back where they've again had winning records and have proven to be, they are now a division champion. They have now won playoff games. This is what it looks like, right? You pay your great players, but at some point in time in the near future, yeah, there's going to some of your fan favorite players might not be Lions for life just because of, again, this being the nature of business. And whether it's Jared Goff's contract is that is causing some cap casualties, or like you said, an Aiden Hutchinson, a Sam Laporta, if JMO goes crazy, how do the Lions choose to treat Jahmyr Gibbs? Because we know the NFL as a whole don't respect running backs, but like, how do the Lions choose to treat Jahmyr? Brian Branch, like all of these players that the Lions have been able to get, like you said, Morgan, yeah, it's going to become a little more difficult to get those guys to second contracts with this team. And so do you start to see guys either leave in free agency, or do you see trades happen just so that the Lions can once again stay in contention? Because like you said, that is what the good teams have done, right? How many Chiefs fans would have loved if Tyreek Hill would have stayed in Kansas City? That wasn't the cost of doing business. They ultimately decided that an investment of Patrick Mahomes was better. The investment of Chris Jones was more important. The same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. And like, again, they've continued to just shuffle wide receivers because they're just like, now we're going to figure this out. But as long as we have Lamar, we can do that. And we're going to keep this defense as a priority. It's going to be interesting to see in the coming years how the Lions approach this. And right now, it's their offense. They know where they have their cornerstone players. They're investing there. I think next offseason, and maybe even the offseason after that, I think that's when we're going to see them start to make those big time investments into their defensive players.
Yeah, and some of them are going to come due. Like if Jack plays really well, you're looking at paying him in another 3 years. Hutch will be probably this time next year. He'll be getting his. Yeah, Aleem. That's going to be a tough. If Aleem has a Pro Bowl season this year, that's going to be a. You're going to have to be like, dang, because yeah, you look at it, guys. Like you kind of find this identity. I like that point that you brought up, Meko. Like the Ravens. Like the Ravens are going to be tough on defense. They're going to have a good offensive line, and then they have Lamar Jackson, who is one of one, and that's their formula. They'll roll some guys out there, and who knows, man? The Lions might go the bargain bin route with skill guys down the road outside of St. Brown and Laporta, and just like kind of what the Chiefs do. Like, oh, we got Travis Kelce, we're good, and we'll just work from there. Like, and it's tough sometimes. They lose some games, but at the end of the day, like you said, you have to pick and choose your spots, and that's why the NFL has so much parity, is because the salary cap is real. I hate when you see it on Twitter, like the salary cap isn't real. There are teams out there where you like, okay, the salary cap, like the Saints are finally the bill has come due. They ran up their credit card for about a decade. The whole Drew Brees and Sean Payton era, they kicked that can down the road, and they're paying right now. If you go check out Over the Cap again, and if y'all want more content strictly about the salary cap, let us know, and we can prep and try to learn even more for you guys, because it is complicated. But hopefully this helped you out, and hopefully you're not too angry about the contract.
No, 100%. And actually, like, that may be a future video we do once we get the details of Jared Goff's contract and we can kind of break it down. We can probably break down, because the details for St. Brown and Panay's contracts are out there, but we can do a deep dive into each of those 3 contracts just to be able to calm the masses down. So, but before we get to those videos, let us know what you guys think about the current state of Jared Goff's contract. What was your first reaction? Are you excited? Are you bummed out? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, you can always check out prideofdetroit.com, because we're always keeping up to date with all the latest Lions news. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. That way you can be notified anytime we upload new article or new videos. And if we ever get back to going live, you'll be the first to know, because you'll be subscribed over here on YouTube. But with all that said, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.